This week's episode of Still Untitled is brought to you by Google's Cloud Platform. When you're building an application, you need it to be fast, secure, and always evolving. With the Kubernetes engine on Google Cloud Platform, developers can deploy fully managed, containerized apps. The Kubernetes engine combines automatic scaling, updates, and reliable self-healing infrastructure with open source flexibility to cut down development cycles and speed up time to market. To learn more about the Kubernetes engine, visit g.co/getgke. Now on with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
This chair is very uncomfortable, Adam.
It's meant to be comfortable. It minimizes the secondary impact when you eject.
It's for people that are about 3 inches shorter than me.
There, they really are. Like, I think there's height requirements in the in flying fighter jets.
I mean,
what
I
are
guess
the
if I had a
buckles
helmet-
on that like? The seatbelt buckles. Are
What-
they?
It's a 5-point, right?
Are the actual buckles themselves? It's interesting. Did you read that story? I think it was on Atlas Obscura about why all airplane seatbelt buckles have stayed the same.
Oh, that was great.
For 40
no, I haven't
years.
heard about this. What's the reason?
It's purely cost savings.
It is.
Purely cost savings.
You mean just because it's still so cheap to make that shape?
That type of buckle.
So-
As opposed, and there we could have much better buckles, but
What would make them better? Like, I don't have any problem with airplane buckles.
well, you think
per
about what
se.
we have in cars, right? The
Well, that's
cars
what-
with the buttons, and
Those
there's-
used to be in cars, though. That's why
Yes,
old-timey cars
exactly.
had buckles.
Oh.
right,
yeah.
right. They put the belt in and snap the hinge
Thing
over.
down, yeah.
You know what gets me in cars?
What's
Oh.
the deal with cars?
I have a problem with cars. That's me doing Andy Rooney, which
pretty
no
good.
one remembers.
No.
Is when the window seat belt won't connect into the middle seat belt female receiver.
Oh, in the back seat.
Yes.
Right, they make them. They polarize them, as it were. So that you can only clip the middle seat belt into the middle seat belt receiver, and the window seat belt into the window seat belt receiver. I understand why they do that.
Yeah.
but it is like when my 80-year-old mom is trying to put on a seat belt and she's just jamming it into anything that feels like a seatbelt receiver. Give her the benefit of the doubt and just let it go home.
Do they still do that? I
They
don't.
Yeah.
still do.
Oh,
and
really?
it's most awkward if you're in a shared car
Like a
riding
lift,
situation.
yeah.
Yep.
And
You're
you're in the
sitting
back
there on your-
and like, sorry, you move this.
I'm not
you're
grabbing
moving-
your ass.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I need
It's
you
just-
to be
it's-
safe.
It's one of those, like, you've made a modification that I don't think is necessary for a problem that rarely exists, that almost never exists. I mean, I guess, you know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
perhaps mechanically there's a safety difference in terms of the polarity and where that one is facing and the amount of force that goes upon the female end.
why
of the
can't they be
seatbelt.
bidirectional? Why can't it? This is the USB-A
It's
problem
it's
for
plausible.
cars.
So it's a car seat thing.
Yeah, but it's plausibly a
Yeah.
plausibly a regulation issue and a cost issue.
Probably because the shoulder needs to be attached to the same
Yep.
physical seat as the
something-
thing.
it could be
and with
something
those
like
split
that.
back seats, then I don't know. That's
Yeah.
a guess.
But-
my favorite part about that Atlas Obscura article, though, was a problem that I literally hit 6 years ago now, because when we first started tested, I wanted to find the person who designed airline seats.
Oh yeah.
Because clearly, like, that was done in like 1963, and then nobody's ever touched it because the FAA approves, everybody's cool with it. Nobody would talk about it.
Really?
Like, you call Boeing. I called Boeing's press office and was like, "Hey, I want to talk to the people who, like, that's a subcontractor. We can't point you to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's the subcontractor who makes airplane seats? Yeah,
Well, the place to go would be a convention, because there are international conventions for airplane manufacturers and the subcontractors. It's like a
Probably.
CES
Yeah.
for those parts. And there's
That
some
would be a
you
crazy show.
You see the YouTube videos where they sell on like the fancy, like
Yeah,
it's
the
more
new,
like
the new first class
Exactly.
bed seats.
It's all
yeah,
for the first class.
with
It's
the
where the money can be
greenhouse
spent.
in it,
And then there's,
right.
like,
massage and puppies.
Down in the basement by the parking garage entrance, there's like a 10x10 booth with one of the airline seats, the
Yeah.
standard coach seats.
You know,
It's
I
like,
lo-
good luck, mother.
and related to that, I mean, in the article they explain that, as we all know, the seatbelt on the airplane is not gonna. It's really not for crashes. because
keep you
you're
from
dead.
becoming a projectile.
It's just for turbulence.
It's and good for it.
And
I
great.
love tightening that seatbelt when we're in turbulence. I don't want to hit the ceiling.
I like tightening it when we're not in turbulence. It's much better to tighten it before you're in turbulence than while
This
you're
is
in
true,
turbulence.
and yet, for some reason, I need it loose until and unless.
And turbulence is not just one direction. Turbulence is side to side, which is why it's not a 3-point belt buckle. Like because your chest moving it really doesn't matter. It's really just your hips.
I want a 4-point. Do
You
you
want
know
the 4-point
Do you
on
know
the
those so have you guys have been in serious turbulence on the plane, right?
I have not.
Okay, so when I was 12 or 13 years old, my dad and I came to Colorado and we flew over the Rockies on the way back, and it was springtime and it was storming, and it was one of those situations where like the entire Mississippi Valley was flooded because there was so much rain on the western half of the United States. And we hit places where the plane was jumping what felt like 10 or 12 feet. It felt like you were on a roller coaster. And like it happened immediately. Like there was no, they said, hey, it's going to get bumpy. Everybody put your seatbelts on. The seatbelt light was lit. And then the flight attendant got on the speaker when people were up walking around still and was like, look, motherfuckers, sit down because it's about to get bad.
Right.
And it was like I never, ever, ever am up and about in the airplane with my seatbelt off unless it's
Yeah.
Shoes will go off, but not your seatbelt.
I leave my shoes on. Imagine if
You're
there's an
missing a world of
airplane
comfort.
crash.
I leave my shoes on.
Yeah. Also, it's gross to take your shoes off in public.
First thing.
You got to go to passengershaming.com and see pictures from flight attendants.
I'm happy to
of
be
the,
shamed.
Of the like inch-long, uncut, filthy toenails of people who shove them into the window.
whoa.
Yeah.
Socks are on, shoes are off. Look, and they're new socks.
I've sat next to too many smelly people to take my shoes off under any circumstances.
You don't wear sandals on the airplane because if you have to egress in on a landing or takeoff where problems happen, you don't want to be worrying about whether your flop has flipped off.
Every monochrome of comfort I will take.
You mean your thongs?
Yeah. So, look, we're in America, Adam. None of that thong business.
Unrelated, but in the same vein, not obscure. There's also another article written questioning why. Have you ever tried not taking the napkin, the paper napkin, when you get a beverage?
Napkin.
You cannot refuse the paper napkin.
Why?
Unclear?
It's just policy. They will not. They'll never. They'll always give you the paper napkin. They'll never take it back.
Okay.
Even you let them. I don't need one. They will always give you that small, dinky.
How come?
I don't know.
Don't.
It
So
is
there was
harassing.
an article about it,
Yes.
and they still
They
didn't
don't
conclude why.
conclude
That's a bad
why.
article.
That's a standard internet article. It was 2 paragraphs long, and it felt like it was the middle, but it was the end.
It could have been a tweet.
Welcome to the web.
So here's the thing. Don't test this by harassing your flight attendants,
Please
please.
don't. Yeah, their
Like, that is
jobs
a-
are awful.
Yeah, it's a
sorry.
hard job.
Yes,
Yes.
there is a difficult job. I have found that flight attendants get very, very confused when I don't ask for anything. Like if I don't, if the water that was there when I got there is plenty for me for most flights. I don't eat on flights.
Yeah.
It's just like mostly a policy with me of like, why would I waste one of the meals of my life on an airplane?
Yeah.
That's just the way that I think.
That's from a Hannibal book.
But really,
Yeah, he literally. It's not Anthony Hopkins, but like in your head, it's Anthony Hopkins, and he's in there's like talking to a 10-year-old sitting next to him on the airplane.
I kind of like the equality of it all.
Don't waste your life on this food.
yeah, no. But they look very confused. A shout out to the incredible flight crews of New Zealand Air.
Okay.
Who gracefully took me to and from my trip down under. I flew into New Zealand. I flew out of Australia, but back via New Zealand Air. And I love those crews. They are just the sunniest, the most awesome. And I mean, I think I extolled their virtues last week.
This is not a paid product
No,
placement. FTC.
not at all. Not even
It's just
a little bit.
straight up endorsement.
Straight up love for
Very good.
NZ and
You know,
their airlines.
You talk about cars. You talk about planes. I want to talk about trains.
Yeah.
Okay.
You took a train ride.
I took a train ride this past weekend.
Oh.
For the hell of it.
Where did you go?
Just to L.A.
Just you?
If that was Muni,
No,
I would have been
Danica
really
and I-
disappointing.
Went down to L.A. A 12-hour train ride. We bought our tickets on Friday.
12 hours each way?
No. Well, it is. 12 hours from Emeryville, which is right by Oakland.
Yeah.
A few blocks away from Pixar. 12 hours from that to Los Angeles Union Station, and then we flew back next morning.
Why did it take so? Did you stop
Why
at
did it
every
take
town?
was that
No, that's the standard route.
It takes 12 hours.
It takes
I can
12
drive that like
hours
if I'm
and a
not an
half.
express.
There's we did not want the express.
No. Okay.
Okay.
And I don't know if there. I don't
Is
believe
it
there
is it a lovely ride?
So the reason we did it is because Amtrak, and I know there's been a lot of Amtrak in the news recently because of the recent collisions, and there was actually a collision this past weekend on the East Coast. Amtrak was one of their most prized lines because Amtrak is a combination of all the past railways and railroad companies, which built their own lines, had their own cars, had their own engines, and on the West Coast, the one that goes up and down the West Coast is the Coast Starlight.
Right.
And Boing Boing actually had a really wonderful article in
Are they retiring
2014.
it?
They retired one of the cars, the Parlor car,
Right.
which was the flagship standout car in
With
the
like
Coast
a
Starlight.
viewing observation deck or anything like that?
I'll show you some photos.
Okay.
I'll actually post some. It has it is like the equivalent of the viewing deck on most of these cars. Most trains have a car where it's like the mule car
Yeah.
and also the observation cars. And the observation cars on most modern Amtraks are 2 rows of bucket seats, plastic bucket seats, all facing diagonally outward.
Yeah.
So you get your
They're
view.
really awesome.
Right. Which is great if you're going through the
Rockies.
California
You're taking
Zephyr,
Empire
and exactly.
Builder,
Yep,
from
I've taken that.
exactly.
Hope to
And-
take it again this summer, actually.
So the Parlor car, the Pacific Parlor car on the Amtrak, is not that. It is an observation car, but it's all wood and benches and parlor tables and a bar, and downstairs there's a little movie theater room.
Did you play like cribbage with some of your
We made a puzzle. We put together a puzzle,
Okay.
a 300-piece puzzle, and had cocktails and wine tasting with some of the train enthusiasts.
You
on
were the
board.
youngest people on the train by
By far.
25 years.
By far. Oh, yes. Yes, a lovely gentleman we met, Eric, who's a school teacher and has written every long train ride across country, called it his favorite route, and they shut down that Parlor car because of how expensive it is to maintain. It was the
That's
last ride.
This was the last ride?
I went on the last ride on the
Oh,
car.
that's awesome.
I'm
and-
sad, and I'm totally impressed. That's all. A
Nice
train
job,
is my
Norm.
favorite way to travel of all
Yes.
modes of transport.
I've never gone on a long train ride. I've always wanted
Dude.
to, and it's so hard to
I'll tell
say,
you,
like,
when you think of trains, because people, of course, Amtrak is a fine way to commute, right? People do when you think of trains like BART, it is row by row. You're sitting in, it's like an airplane.
yeah.
This with no purpose, like we weren't going to LA, we were
You were
on the
getting
You're taking
train,
the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we just sat there watching the coastline. It's basically right by 101. You see the
So you like-
sunset on Santa Barbara, and we having the meals. It's all prepaid for because we're in the sleeper car. It was just like a 12-hour spa on a train.
So this, when you go the California, the Starlight,
The Coast Starlight.
Coast Starlight, it's the tracks that follow 101, right? So it
It
goes
is.
down like past
Yeah.
Monterey and
Yeah.
Gilroy and all that stuff, and
Yes.
then
That's
through
amazing.
Ventura. That's awesome.
So my Julie and I have taken a train from. We've taken the train from New York to Montreal.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh God,
Yeah, it's
car is
absolutely
gorgeous.
Yeah.
We've taken the train from New York to Montreal, from San Francisco to Seattle, and from San Francisco to Chicago.
So San Francisco, Seattle is the same one, the Coast Starlight.
Yeah.
And
It's beautiful up from here up north, and it's
Yeah.
like 21 hours. And we've spent 10 days in Seattle. This is back on our honeymoon, and at the end of our trip, we both had the same feeling, which was, yay, tomorrow we have a 21-hour train ride. Like
Yeah.
we were psyched about it because it's that whole thing,
It's a
the
thing,
social
yeah.
aspect, the fact that for most train rides that are of a long distance, the view out the window is actually pretty similar to what it was 100 years ago.
that's right. Yeah.
And that's thrilling to me. That feels like an incredible way to see America and to experience the country.
Could not recommend it enough. Even with this car leaving the service, it's still a wonderful journey. And the train enthusiasts we talked to, they said this car made it this route. This Parlor car made this route the best, the favorite route. But second, if you're going for the views, it is what you're talking about, the Rockies. And San Francisco to Denver, then to Chicago, is the California Zephyr. It's 2.5 days. If you just want to do, because it gets expensive if you want to do the sleeper car, just from San Francisco to Denver, or actually from Denver to San Francisco,
Yeah.
because of when you wake up and when the sun sets and where the sun sets, and the increasing majesty of the canyons going westbound and the journey west.
Yeah.
That is the recommended line.
Well, I will tell you, when we took it to Denver, the Rockies were mind blowing because you're going through these tunnel systems and you can sometimes see 3 and 4 tunnels ahead of you because you're winding, or you see Donner
that's
Pass
amazing.
down below you. But you come out of the Rockies above the Denver plain, and whatever time of year we were going, I'll have to look it up, it was sunset. So the sun is setting.
Oh, behind you,
looking at the Denver plain as the train comes in. It was absolutely gobsmackingly gorgeous.
God, that's like when we used to drive to Vegas for CES, and we would just
Tehachapi.
Yeah, we would get through Tehachapi, and then we go coming through the Mojave or the high desert there, and then you get to the part where it's the deep valleys, and the sun would be behind us, and the moon would be in front of us rising, and it was just like you understand why the people who came here got to this part of the country like, wow, this is really, this is unlike anything we've ever seen before.
And for those train ride enthusiasts, because there are, like, the railroads are laid, right? But not all of them are used necessarily. Sometimes Amtrak will say there will be maintenance on one track, and so they'll take an alternate route. And so they keep an eye out for the alternate routes.
For routes that aren't
often taken, so they can see those views by train. And then, so they'll retire cars, and Amtrak has sold some of old cars to private owners.
What do they do with them?
They can put them back on the track and charter them.
I have heard this, and it has occurred to me just as a future thing in my life to see how much that would cost and bring a whole bunch of friends on a trip to Aspen.
As of 2014, it was $10,000. $10,000 for a whole car.
Yeah,
for a whole car. So
how many people?
Across 20 people, that's $500.
They do tour groups and charter groups. I think they can pack like 70 people on a car.
Imagine if you brought 30 close friends and you're just all together. That could be amazing.
And some of the private cars, there are 3 in the country. I'll wrap up with this.
Yeah.
3 of them have the bubble view, which go above the train.
Oh, nice.
And do they have sleepers underneath?
I think it's just seating underneath. Yeah. But you'd sleep on the other car and walk on that car. Yeah.
We did the first time we went, we got the family sleeper because we thought it would be extra, because it is the largest sleeper, but it's on the bottom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
too close.
That's just it's everybody has their own way of doing it. When you're up top, you rattle more. That's just a given. But the view is so much better up top than it is down on the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, so the route that I've always wanted to do is the Seattle to Minneapolis one that goes through through the Badlands and through Montana and all that stuff.
Wow, yeah.
Just in like the few last remaining desolate parts of the country, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is that there's people charter trains. So the train jam is a game jam, a video game jam that happens in the week before the Game Developer Conference, which is here in San Francisco every spring. And they get on the train in Chicago and spend the 3 or 4 days going from Chicago to San Francisco, basically broken up into small teams and making a bunch of kind of 4-day game jam games. And then they present them when they get to GDC.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's like one of those things that, like, last year I was talking to one of the organizers, a friend of mine. She was telling me that they actually, like, it's become such a big deal for Amtrak. They're very excited about it every year, that they had a snowplow run in front of them to clear the pass because last year we had so much snow, and like they weren't sure the train was going to be able to get through.
Right.
And they figured out a way to make it happen. It's very cool.
I'm sorry I didn't know you were in LA on Friday night.
Saturday night.
Oh, Saturday night. Because we had a party.
It's all right.
We went down and spent the weekend in LA, threw a little party in our room for our local LA friends, and got to see a bunch of folks that I love.
That's awesome.
A friend of Tested, Ben Acker, of Acker and Blacker, writers of the Thrilling Adventure Hour, came, and he was at the very tail end of the norovirus and had no voice.
Oh.
And so a friend of mine started asking him questions about himself, and he was answering in charades. And it was like, as he said, it was like, this is the greatest thing to have happen to small talk ever.
So interactive.
It's all. It becomes a game.
Well, and he's a comedy writer, so
Yeah.
by definition, he's an amazing charades player. And that was really fun.
That's awesome.
Thing 2, who lives nearby where we were staying, came over with his roommate and a friend, and so got to I'm living the dream of hanging out with my kids in different cities, right? Like this to me is like the height of feeling like your kids are adults. Like, hey, why don't you come on over and hang out?
That's
And
great.
then the next day he came and took all the booze that people didn't drink.
Oh,
Because he was having a Super Bowl party,
Yeah,
and
of
that's
course.
totally
Why not?
reasonable.
Yeah.
Why not?
That is understandable.
Yeah. We can't assume everyone listened or watched the Super Bowl.
You mean the
but-
Superb Owl?
Yeah, the big game.
Superb Owl-
The big game.
There was
Yeah.
Superb Owl. I like that's pretty good.
It's my favorite.
I like
that's a
that.
pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
that happened this weekend.
That did happen this weekend, and in terms of the media world, very interesting. There are the commercials, of course.
Yep.
Dude, Netflix ran a $5 million ad for a direct-to-video movie.
That's right. That was a crazy thing.
For which one? For
the
the
Cloverfield
The
paradox.
Cloverfield, right,
And we were calling that a direct-to-video, direct to Netflix.
It
which
was
is
going to be a
basically-
direct-to-video movie. Like,
Yeah.
it bounced around, and they didn't have a release date for it, and they had one, and they didn't, and they didn't, and they did.
What a fascinating world where they can drop a big, quote-unquote, big-budget movie the day. It was Lemonade for movies.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah. Tide Pods, lots of Tide Pod ads or something. I don't know. I didn't watch that. I was making food.
I'll tell you this. Yeah, in terms of the ingenuity of commercials, the big winner I think was Tide.
Yeah.
Right, because Tide had the series of commercials with David Harbour from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And he started off by psyching you out with commercial, like things that look like beer commercials or car commercials, and then he'd go, "But I'm wearing a clean shirt, so guess what? It's actually a Tide ad."
See.
And so they bought a sequence of advertisements throughout the whole game where it would look like it was one type of ad, including like the Old Spice guy on the horse.
Right.
Except, psych, it's clean.
Isaiah Mustafa.
Yes, it's a Tide ad. And it works out because Procter & Gamble owns both. And so you get them thinking about both. And basically every commercial, every
Makes
commercial
me
has
nervous
clean
about the
clothes.
future.
Look, I fully expected the last ad in that sequence to be a Taco Bell / Tide ad
Wow.
where they introduced the
Where
new
Spuds
Tide Pod
McKenzie
chalupa.
and the
Oh.
Chihuahua
Yeah.
from Taco Bell
Yeah.
meet and
Yeah.
party with Pauly
Exactly.
Shore.
Yeah, but maybe more relevant to our listeners out there are the movie trailers that came out during the Super Bowl. Of course,
Solo?
we got to talk about Solo.
I watched the teaser. I haven't watched the full
You
trailer.
haven't watched the full trailer.
I'm not going to watch anything else.
I'm in the middle of a very busy work time. I have a lot of stuff going on. I literally have not been dealing with the internet very much.
You
at
know,
all.
this could be your opportunity to go into that movie
Totally
completely
clean.
clean.
You know what?
Relatively.
Maybe I should.
Memorial Day is when it comes out.
Well, that's fast.
That's really
yeah.
fast.
It's
We
like
don't have to
right
wait
around
until
the corner.
December.
Yeah.
I thought
It's very late for them to be releasing a trailer.
It is. I
Well,
think people.
guess-
Can we
Guess
discern
what?
anything from this piece of information?
Guess what, Adam? I don't know if you're aware, but they might. It's been a little tumultuous over in Han Solo land.
You know, so I had this idea. I was thinking about when does Infinity War open?
that is also May.
That is also May. I was thinking that Tested we should cosplay going to that movie.
As who? There's so many. There are like 36 characters.
Pick and choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I be Black Widow?
You got the costumes
I
right
got the-
there.
yeah,
You got the costumes
yeah,
right
yeah. You
there.
can-
Yeah.
yeah.
There's,
You can't be Black Widow.
Come on.
you could be
No, of
Thor.
course you can. You can let your freak flag
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to
Yeah,
do.
I could do a Thor.
Yeah.
I got the right build for that, right? I'll start working out.
What else happened this week? Right, there was the Superb Owl competition.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
The best part about the Superb Owl is everybody just rolls right on, and then like 4 seconds later, like, oh,
That's really good.
right.
I saw Tom Sachs this weekend. He's down in Los
Oh.
Angeles. We were hanging out. That was lovely. Haven't seen him in a few months.
Are there any projects you're working on that you can talk about in the shop? Just like small projects here and there. You know what? While you think about that, I'm going to share with people.
Yeah, that's really lovely.
This for people watching the video. I'm holding what looks like
Fidget spinners
a
are
fidget
so
spinner,
2017.
and
yet it's actually a zoetrope.
it is by friend of Tested Jonathan
Jonathan Odom,
who made the files for the beautiful Blade Runner binoculars I built as one day build recently.
Yeah, and it uses the two bearings from a fidget spinner
Those are
with
just skate bearings.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like 4 3D printed parts, including this outer layer. I don't know how this got attached.
It looks like it's glued. So it's 2 rings, this outer ring, and then
It's a
the
zoetrope.
covers for
It's a
the-
zoetrope.
for the
It's a little zoetrope that shows an animation through the slits when you look at it. And he included several other. He included an envelope with some other things that we could slip
That's
in there
great.
for frames.
It's clever in that, I can't believe nobody thought of this before. Like, right? Like you look and you're like, oh, right. Yeah, these are all things that work together.
But there have been a lot of play with fidget spinners in animation, both 3D printed animation and flat 2D art animation. We've been talking about me doing some more 3D drawing because I have not yet delved into the
like tilt brush and stuff like that?
No, just like CAD.
Tinkercad.
It's like,
okay.
Stuff like that. I now finally feel the pull of some things that I want to build in the shop. A one-day build that we're going to shoot later on this week where I could use some 3D parts, and it's time to stop just asking Sean Charlesworth to carry my water.
Well, we have a lot of listeners out there who are professional 3D modelers, and maybe they could put some advice in the comments as to what programs they use or what would be a good
love to hear
process to
that.
start.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like
right.
the starter projects are the interesting thing for me. Like what's a good it's the thing we've talked about for years, right? What's your first project when you try to learn something new, right?
It's like I just find something I'm obsessed with and start to try and use this new process to implement it.
I would love to see you spend like 45 minutes a day with Medium, the Oculus, the kind of JV ZBrush thing, but you can use your hands and it's all 3D, so you don't have to fool with the four pane CAD interface, which to me makes it much more accessible.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. But so you're like working with clay, but you have all the undo and rewind and stuff that you would want in Photoshop.
Okay.
Layers.
I do have one more recommendation,
Yeah.
and it's an escape room.
Ooh.
And it's in the Bay Area at the Palace of Fine Arts. So this is all I'm totally in like early 20th century, late 19th century feel right now. There's an escape room, 3 escape rooms set up by a company called Palace Games in the old Palace of Fine Arts where the Exploratorium is. And it is one's Houdini themed, one's Roosevelt themed, and one's Thomas Edison themed. We did the Roosevelt themed one, and it is by far.
By a bear?
No, it's a series of puzzles, but the electronics that they built to automate the system in multiple rooms and things that happen with lights and sound was really, really impressive.
Oh, cool.
Those are the only ones in the Bay Area that I haven't done yet, just because I haven't gotten a 10-person group to go or 8-person group to go do them yet.
Yeah.
And the people that I know that have seen them have said that they are by far among the best production value escape rooms they've seen anywhere.
That's exactly
awesome.
it. The
Yeah,
production
go.
value, the
I'll go.
theming.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll put a group together
That'd be
and
lovely.
we'll do one of those. But you've done plenty of escape rooms,
done a
well,
ton,
right? And
yeah.
they vary from a box you get to one room you're in, and
Yes. So the common theme is usually that you have a sequence of puzzles to solve.
Right.
But they require some kind of divide and conquering. So like often you'll solve an opening puzzle, and then that will open up 10 threads that you then have to unravel each
And
thread.
each person, you divide up your team to.
And it may not be that like it's one person per puzzle, but like you don't want to have 6 people working on one thing. Is the core guiding thing. And usually, if they're done well, then there are things that appeal to people that do word puzzles, or people that are spatially oriented, or people that are able to solve perspective and drawing puzzles and things like that.
Yeah.
And you end up with something that like. I've taken a bunch of people who don't play video games and who aren't people who play board games or really even into puzzles to escape rooms, and people always have fun because if it's a well-designed room, then there's literally something that appeals to everyone.
Yeah.
There should be.
Yeah, and the production value this one was extraordinary.
Yeah,
The set dressing and
That's awesome.
That one's interesting, and the problem, the reason I haven't done it yet is because like usually you can buy single tickets if you want, or you can buy out a whole room if like you're going with a friend for a birthday or something like that. You can always get 4 or 5 people, but getting 8 people and getting schedules lined up is tough. But I know we have some friends have tested who would definitely be into doing
Let's do
who
it.
are
Let's
willing
make
to
an
come
outing.
into town
All
to
right.
do those.
All you need is 8 to 10. All right, we're gonna put it in and then we'll talk about it in a future podcast.
This feels like a lightweight podcast this week.
There's a
but
lot of stuff.
my brain is occupied on other things. I apologize if I'm a
Well, I mean, sometimes it's nice to have a potpourri, right?
Hey, after you listen to this podcast or watch this video, I highly recommend you go on the site or YouTube channel and watch our ongoing series right now on Aardman Animation.
Yeah.
Because they have a film coming out called Early Man.
It is so cool.
We are able to visit their production studios
What a treat.
for you, Adam, to interview and meet some of their animators, animation directors, their sculptors, or set builders.
Nick Park.
Yeah, Nick Park. Oh my God. Yeah, that video is out, and just get an insight in the middle of production. So how generous were they?
They really did. It was impressive because they're running like 40 stages at a time, trying to keep this filming. You know, each person can complete something like a few seconds of animation every day.
Right.
Plus, they're using all these totally different systems between the clay and the silicones and the armatures to keep everything matching. It's an astounding achievement from an engineering standpoint.
And from a collaboration
and creative. And they really did let us see the whole process.
I mean, I can't believe they let you guys tromp around the set when, like, if you bump a camera, then there goes 3 days worth of work or 2 weeks worth of work.
They had
or
those
whatever.
concerns. And, you know, they don't do it very frequently because of those problems. And, you know, when they do press tours, like mid-production, not really.
You were very lucky to get to go in there. I'm really, like, I can't wait to go watch those.
And so when Adam says 40 stages, it's a giant building where they have 40 rooms split up and of various sizes, where they have these at scale sets, sometimes as big as this room itself for a giant set. The opening sequence of the film is like this camera movement that goes through animation. So like the cameras, motion control camera systems, it's not just static.
Yeah. That's
really,
amazing.
really cool.
Well, I mean, look, if you look at the rise of like microcontrollers and inexpensive robotics and all that stuff, those guys have to be thrilled.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
like that kind of motion control camera would have been phenomenally expensive 10 years ago, and now you can hack it together in a weekend.
But still, what I keep on noticing when I visit these companies is that even though that stuff is all over the place, these guys are all still coming up with their own bespoke solutions to stuff because there is no single off-the-shelf solution. So FBFX will write its own software to make an auto robot carve me out of foam, and Aardman has all this proprietary technology built into everything from the pre-visualization to the shooting to the execution to the compositing. I mean, all of that. You know, it's like it's really awesome seeing how much these companies have to build their own R&D departments to keep pace with their vision.
Well, when you're one of the 3 or 4 studios in the world that still does stop motion at that scale, I mean, it's not like Adobe's making stop motion animator 2017.
It was also really clear that everyone was having so much fun. Like cool. The shop ethos of Aardman is one of collaboration where people really feel like they're putting their all into something they believe in, and that's always good to be around.
I love those movies so much. They're fabulous.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that does it this week for Still Untitled.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week, and we're filming a bunch of stuff this week. So yeah, you guys will see some stuff of that on the site. Until
Thanks,
then.
guys.
Okay. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.